Dear church family, it is fantastic to deal with another story in the book of Genesis that deals with trail of trials. It's about ancient people who walked with God and how they handled their trials. And today I've entitled this lesson, A Lot of Trials. A Lot of Trials. And there's a little sneaky piece of wording in there. And I've basically put a sermon statement out there for this lesson today. When people you love cause you trials. What do you do when people whom you love cause you difficulties in your life? Have you ever been in a position where you love someone so much, but those same people, they just make dumb decisions that keeps on affecting you? They always seem to get into trouble, and often you are the only one that can help them out, or the only one that's willing to help them out. It could be a brother or a sister of burdens, and they always just bring trouble to your door. They are the trial in your life. And you cannot just ignore them and tell them to sort out their own lives because you love them. And so it puts you in a difficult situation. I've seen this so many times in the church, people that I've met. I remember a lady who had a son who was really into drugs. And the one day she said she managed to get him to a drug rehabilitation center. And she asked if I would drive him. It was about an 8-hour drive. And the day that I was going to take him, I went to the house to go and fetch him, and as I was driving along the road, I saw him walking next to the road, and he's arrested, and the police are holding him. And I was like, what? This is the guy that I'm supposed to take to the rehab, and here he is being arrested. Turned around the car and followed them, and I phoned the mother, and when we got to the shopping mall where he was all chained up and things like that. He had apparently stolen shaving blades, and it's these expensive Gillette Fusion shaving blades that he had taken these blades, and he ran out of the shop, and the cops were after him, or the security guards. And what happened was, because he did lots of drugs, there was heroin in his blood fat, in the fat in his body, and as he was running and sweating, it reactivated the heroin in his fat cells that went into his bloodstream, and he got high, and he couldn't run anymore and just fell down. And the security guards grabbed him. But the reason why he stole the blades was he could sell it outside for cheaper, and so go and buy drugs. And I'll never forget the day that his mother sat there, and she just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed for what his son was going through and what his son was busy doing with his life. He had stole TVs from them. He had stole loads of things. It's just so hard if your son puts you through trials like that. I remember meeting a lady whose husband would just leave and just go gamble out all of their money, all the food they need for the month. He would go and gamble out, lose it all. Lots and lots of money. I remember a man who was in the church whose wife continually just cheated on him over and over again. He would forgive her and just love her, regardless of what she has done. I remember a lady who had a brother who was just an alcoholic, and he just couldn't stop drinking, and that would have an effect on her. He would call her the whole time if he was into trouble. And I've seen many parents struggling with their children who's got friends that are not good friends at all, and those friends would bring trials into their lives. Now, how do the disciples of Jesus respond to such people? It is the battle between tough love and love, right? The battle between justice and grace. Do I give this person justice or grace? You constantly wonder if you must push them out of your life and let them live theirs. But this love that you have for them keeps on pulling you closer to them. So it seems like they will be a trial in your life for as long as life endures. And it might not be a person that does drugs or is a gambler. It might just be a person that makes wrong decisions in their relationships, in the way that they use money. And that has an effect on you. And it always comes knocking on your door. Today, we're going to talk about a person like that. His name is Lot. His name is Lot. Lot was the son of Abraham's brother Haran. So Lot was therefore Abraham's nephew. Now when Terah came from Ur to Haran, the city, he brought Abraham and Sarai and Lot with. When Terah died, Lot traveled with Abraham and Sarai all the way down through Canaan, and even went with them into Egypt when the drought was taking place. So it seems like Abraham has got this attachment everywhere he goes. His name is Lot. However, Lot ended up on the plains of Sodom and Gomorrah with his family and his children. And these are the towns that I don't think need any introduction. Although the area was really flowing with milk and honey, physically, it was a place filled with evil and darkness. At one point, Lot gets carried away during warfare by another king. We also see that Lot is married to a lady that seems to like the cities of the light. She likes the darkness of Sodom and Gomorrah. And most people know about her. She turned into a salt pillar because when God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, He said, don't look back. And she did look back. And, why is it that she looked back? Well, I've said it before. Let me say it again. I think she had an emotional attachment to some of the people in that city. Or she had an emotional attachment to the city itself. She was not all that convinced that it's a place worthy of destruction. And that is why God let her turn into a salt pillar. Now, in the New Testament, we have the shortest verse. One of the shortest verses speaks about her, and that's Jesus talking. He says in Luke 17 verse 32, remember Lot's wife. 3 words. Remember Lot's wife. And I think she's important. In the context, Jesus is talking about His second coming, and he's using this idea of what happened at Sodom and Gomorrah, trying to get us ready for the fact that God's going to destroy once again the world, and we've got to be ready to flee. But further than that, we find that her name is nowhere mentioned in the Bible. And I wonder how Lot feels about that his wife is nowhere mentioned in the Bible. The only thing that you'll ever remember about her is that she turned into a salt pillar. Well, God saves Lot and his 2 daughters from the plains of Sodom. They went to go live in a cave in the mountains. And there his daughters one night made him drunk and raped him so that they could conceive children. Sure, that's quite an incestuous issue. And this story has been illustrated through the ages, through paintings, and things like that. Anyways, they do become pregnant, and they've got 2 sons. The one daughter bears a son by the name of Moab, and the other daughter bears a son by the name of Ben-Ami. And these 2 sons become great nations, the Ammonites and the Moabites that we often read about in the Old Testament. Based on what we know about Lot, this is just a brief summary of his life and what we know about him, I make the following deductions regarding him. The first thing is this. I think Lot was a good man. Lot was a good man. Peter writes about him in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 7 to 8. Lot was a righteous man who was distressed by the filthy lives of lawless men. So it seems like in Sodom, Lot wasn't very happy about what was going on. That's why he didn't hesitate to run. And then the text says, for that righteous man, talking about Lot, living among them day after day, was tormented in his righteous soul by the lawless deeds he saw and heard. And so Lot was a righteous man. Abraham believed that too. And that is why he pleaded with God not to destroy everybody living in Sodom. The question is, how come his life did not work out so well? How come Lot seems to be always surrounded by problems? Because Lot was surrounded by not so good people. That seems to be the case. Although Lot was a good man, he does not seem to be very wise in choosing his friends. He chose to go live in an immoral society. He chose to stay there in Sodom. He chose to marry a lady who loved that immoral society. And that seems to have trickled down to his daughters, who performed an extremely immoral act on him. After Genesis chapter 19, we do not hear anything about him. All we hear is about his descendants. God gives his descendants land. We read that in Deuteronomy 2 verse 9 and 19. And so God still seems to have a soft spot for Lot and his descendants. But later on, however, we see God says the following: no Ammonite or Moabite or any of his descendants may enter the assembly of the Lord, even down to the 10th generation. That is in Deuteronomy chapter 23 and verse 3. So Lot was a good man, but it seems like he wasn't really surrounded by good people. That infiltrated in his life, that affected his decision making, that affected his descendants. The conclusion that I therefore make is this: good people surrounded by bad people spells trouble. Good people surrounded by bad people spells trouble. And that is why most of Lot's life we read about in the New Testament, and the Old Testament actually, is trouble. He has issues with the people in his town. He has issues with his wife. He has issues with his daughters. He has issues with Abraham's herdsmen. He has issues with war. The man permanently seems to be in trouble somehow. And every time he's in trouble, Abraham is struggling along because he loves him. He loves him. Abraham loves Lot. But Lot seems to be a difficult nephew to have around. He always seems to land in trouble. So today, what we want to do is we want to learn from Abraham. How does Abraham treat his troubled nephew Lot, knowing that he's a good man, but seeing that he always gets into trouble? So, let's talk about this. How do we treat the people in our lives whom we love, but often make bad decisions? Here's the first thing that I see in the story. And it's found in Genesis chapter 13. Here it is. Bless them. Bless them. I'm going to read Genesis chapter 13 verse 5. Now Lot, who was moving about with Abraham, also had flocks and herds and tents. But the land could not support them while they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. And quarreling arose between Abraham's herdsmen and the herdsmen of Lot. The Canaanites and the Perizzites were also living in the land at that time. So Abraham said to Lot, let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herdsmen and mine, for we are brothers. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. Lot looked up, and he saw that the whole plain of the Jordan was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt towards Zoar. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan, and set out towards the east. The two men parted company. Abraham lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain, and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were wicked, and were sinning greatly against the Lord. This is this reveals the heart of Abraham so beautifully. Abraham's men and Lot's men get into arguments about the herd. It seems like the potential for argumentation between Lot and Abraham was also evident. It seems like if they didn't part company, I think Lot and Abraham would also have gone at loggerheads. But Abraham has the maturity. He proposes a totally unselfish solution to the problem. You choose, Lot. Where would you like to live? And wherever you choose, I'll go the opposite direction. I'll give you first choice. A little bit of Lot's character is also made visible here. We see the difference between Lot and Abraham. Abraham says, you choose. Lot says, what's the most beautiful place for me to live? You know what? I love that area. He doesn't even consider if Abraham wants to live there. He says, I will go live there. I'll go live in the Jordan plain. He chose what is best for himself. So he's a little bit more selfish than Abraham. And we know that in the end, that cost him. Living down in the valley close to Sodom and Gomorrah wasn't a good idea. Now, Abraham, in his wisdom, opts for peace through separation. He opts for peace through separation. Abraham was interested in many things, but one thing was for sure. He was not interested in quarreling and conflict. It just didn't sit well with his personality. And so he wanted peace. And in the moment, the best way to achieve peace was through separation. And sometimes it is also the best option we have in our lives with people who continually bring trials to us. In a nice and peaceful way, the best thing is to separate ourselves from those who bring quarreling into our lives. Romans chapter 12 verse 18 says, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with all men. And so just a side note, we can learn here from Abraham. Those people who continually bring trouble into our lives, it might be a good idea just to get some distance between you and them. And then Abraham blesses Lot by putting himself aside. The land, the whole land, including Sodom and Gomorrah, including the Jordan River, was promised to Abraham rightfully by God. Rightfully, Abraham should have the position of picking and choosing where he wants to live. After all, the land belongs to him and his descendants, isn't it so? But he doesn't use that right. He gives Lot the option. It is similar to what Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 6 when he talks about taking another brother to court. In chapter 6 verse 7 of 1 Corinthians, the text says, the very fact that you have lawsuits among you means you have been completely defeated already. Why not rather be wrong? Why not rather be cheated? And that's exactly what Abraham does here. Abraham was thinking quickly by rather being the one wronged so that Lot would be blessed. What's the application? Ladies and gentlemen, people don't always deserve your blessing. You don't always deserve to take the back seat. You don't deserve to be discomforted through other people's mistakes and decisions, but it's the greatest honor in the world to bless people even though they don't deserve it. The greatest thing that we can do to people whom we love and get hurt by at the same time is to just bless them. This is what Jesus called us to do, isn't it? This is what Jesus did on the cross, isn't it? It reminds me of Mother Teresa's poem called Anyway. I'll read it to you. People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you're honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. What you spend your years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the world the best you've got anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it is between you and your God. It was never between you and them anyway. And so blessing people, regardless of how they treat us, do it anyway. It's between you and God. You see, you never want to look back and say, I contributed to somebody's fall. I didn't help them when they needed. I didn't bless them when all they needed was a blessing. Abraham can look back and say, I blessed Lot. I always gave him the first option, the best option. I cannot take responsibility for where he lived and who he befriended in Sodom. Our goal must always be to bless such people to get out of their mess and not to sink further into it. And so always ask yourself the question, what blessing can I give this person to help them out of this situation? And what is interesting in the story is that after Abraham blessed Lot, God appeared to Abraham again and said, I'm going to give you this whole land and I'm going to give you many, many, many children. So God sort of blesses Abraham when he blesses Lot. That's beautiful. And so God blesses us when we bless others. And then there's a second thing. We read it in Genesis chapter 14 that Abraham does to Lot. So first of all, Abraham blesses Lot. Second of all, Abraham rescues Lot. And so I would say, rescue the people in your life that are bringing trials to you if you can. In Genesis chapter 14, Lot is caught in the middle of a war. He had chosen to live in a fertile plain that many kingdoms was interested in. In chapter 14, verse 11, the text says the following. The 4 kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food, and then they went away. They also carried off Abraham's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom. One who escaped came and reported this to Abraham the Hebrew. Now Abraham was living near the great trees of Mamre, the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol and Aner, all of whom were allied with Abraham. When Abraham heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with the women and the other people. Now Lot was captured with everything he had. And when Abram heard the news, he immediately went in pursuit of saving his relative Lot. And then we read what happens in verses 13 to 16. And interestingly again, we see that after this whole event, after he saves Lot, he meets Melchizedek, this figure that we can't put our finger on, who many people say is a prefigure of Jesus, but he was the king of Salem, or the king of Jerusalem. And in a sense, through this meeting, God blesses Abraham again. Abraham refuses to take anything from the king of Sodom. And this serves once again as an example that Lot lives in the kingdom of Sodom, but Abraham does not even want to take anything from him because he is a king of a godless place. What do we see in this story? We see that Abraham hurts to the point that he wants to help. When we love someone, we hurt when they hurt. Their decisions do not matter. And when we hurt, then we want to help. And we should help. We should rescue when we can. That is love. It includes helping them with food when they have drugged it all out. It includes bailing them out of prison when they've made the wrong decision. If we can help, we should help. Abraham chose the trial over regret. Sometimes we feel people get what they deserve, and we smile about it. Abraham could have said, you choose to go live there, so carry the consequences. When I gave you an option to go live, you said you wanted to go live close to Sodom and Gomorrah, so take the consequences. But Abraham didn't. He chose to go to war to save the people that he loved. His motive wasn't about how good or bad Lot was, or about his decisions. It was based on love. So what's the application here? We should never stop loving people because we disagree with how they do things. Everybody needs a rescue now and then. It's easy to rescue a dog. You know why? Because they did not choose where they found themselves. But it's hard to rescue a person because most of the time they've chosen where they found themselves. Rescue them anyway. It's not an achievement to rescue a dog. It's an achievement to rescue someone you love regardless of why they need rescuing. And then there's a third thing. So first of all, bless them. Second of all, rescue them if you can. And third of all, pray for them. The next point that Lot finds himself into trouble is found in Genesis chapter 18. God appears to Abraham in the form of 3 men. Abraham welcomes them and makes food for them. He gets them into their house and into his house, and God informs them that they will have a child. Beautiful story. And then in Genesis chapter 18 and verse 16 we read the following. When the men got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom, and Abram walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, shall I hide from Abram what I am about to do? Abram will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him. For I have chosen him so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. Then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so grievous that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. The men turned away and went towards Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? The Lord said, if I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Then Abram spoke up again, now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city because of 5 people? If I find 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. Once again he spoke to him, what if only 40 are found there? He said, for the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. Abram said, now that I've been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? He said, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. And then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there? He answered, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abram, he left, and Abram returned home. And the rest of the story we do know. First, Lot was in trouble by Abram when the herdsmen were arguing. Then Lot gets into trouble with King Kedorlaomer. And now Lot gets in trouble with God. Lot seems to get in the middle of trouble wherever he goes, and Abraham gets dragged into it. Abraham pleads in prayer for those whom he loves and who are in trouble. Look at how Abraham negotiates with God here. He starts at 50, then he goes to 45, then he goes to 40, then he goes to 30, then he goes to 20, then he goes down to 10. And Abraham is sincere. He's petitioning God for the sake of his cousin whom he loves. He's about to wipe out the whole city with Lot in it. But Abraham begs God. Abraham appeals to God based on Lot's righteousness. Lot's wife didn't meet up to the righteousness that we would expect, and neither did his daughters, but it seems like God came down because Lot had been praying for the city. And so Lot didn't find himself in the ideal place, but he didn't stop respecting God. What's the application here? Sometimes we don't pray enough for those who are on a path of destruction. If Abraham never pleaded with God, maybe Lot would have died with Sodom. Our prayers can save the people whom we love from God's wrath. We also must be careful to make judgments on people. From the outside, one would ask the question, why is Lot living in this sinful place and surrounding himself with these sinful people? Yet Lot was in the heart of the immorality, busy calling out to God. I think the outcry that God spoke about, that he heard from Sodom, came from Lot, most probably. Sometimes the actions of the people that we love contradicts what we consider to be righteous, but it doesn't mean that they are not connected with God in a special way. Either way, we should be praying for them. So what can we take home in conclusion? Let me just summarize this quickly. These difficult people in our lives, the people whom we love, who gets us in, who always bring their trials to our doorsteps, bless them, and if you can, rescue them and pray for them. We learn that from the father of the faith. 3 concluding points. We bless based on who we are, not based on what someone else does. And sometimes we get that wrong. We think, well, that person doesn't deserve a blessing. Well, I don't deserve God's blessing either way. I'm going to bless people based on who I am, not based on what they've done. Very important. Secondly, we rescue others because we love them. Not because they deserve it. We rescue because we love. That's what Abram did here. He said, my relative has been taken captive. I'm going to go rescue him because he's my relative and I love my relatives. Thirdly, we pray because we love. Period. We pray because we love. That's it. If there's somebody in your life that bring their trials to your door, I challenge you today to go pray for them. And if you can help them in any way, do it. And if you can bless them, do it. May God bless you. Love you all. Have a super week. Bye-bye.